that is a feeling you don't want to feel again. Like you want to minimize that feeling as many times as possible moving forward. So you're going to create a system, you're going to create a process, you're going to have your team like hone in on that to avoid it. And so it's like that conflict then lets change. And so if you can go in any situation thinking like that and knowing like, wow, in the moment, this sucks. Like I hate this feeling, but what can we do to make sure that we minimize this moving forward? And that is the change that will kind of like compound to become a successful endeavor.
Hi, everyone. This is Joshua Hoffman and Alex Garashenko, and welcome to another episode of the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast, where we deconstruct the why and how agency owners found their success, and season 4 focus on how we can give and receive referrals. Today, I have Steven Schneider, the co-founder and CEO of TrioSEO, a marketing agency that helps SaaS and B2B brands create content that generates high-intent organic traffic. Welcome, Steven.
All right, thanks, guys. Excited to be here.
Thanks
And
for
I
having
just
us on the
love
show.
I love calling out a plant in the back. So you got a pretty darn good plant back there. I keep saying that I need to work on my background, but
It's fake. I can't take full
no,
credit.
it's not. Is that fake?
Yeah, we have a ton of plants in our house, but my office ones are fake because the darkness that you see right now is constant. So it just doesn't mesh well. Like I've even killed succulents
That makes
in here.
sense.
But
Why do you keep your office dark?
I don't know. I just always done that. Like ever since college, it's always been kind of like a nice. It's almost like the horses that wear those blinders. It's kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting how different people focus like that. When we had an office before COVID, the person that, like my operations manager at this point, but when we were starting, they wanted it dark, and I wanted the lights fully on, and she said it was distracting.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It just has always helped me. It kind of like I always listen to like loud techno music or loud metal music all day when I'm working. And so just having that with zero light, zero distractions is just like everything else fades away. It's like a constant
I feel
flow.
like I could do that. I feel like
I
that
do
would
the
work
same
for me.
thing.
What techno?
Yeah.
Any bands or any DJs?
Yeah, it varies. It's kind of like I'm stuck in like the early like mid 2000s, so like a lot of like early Tiesto, a lot of like Cascade. It bounces around a lot of like European like
Above and Beyond.
warehouse techno,
Dude,
Above and Beyond. Yeah,
The words
Zed's
don't
Dead.
bother you
Yeah.
That's
when there's words.
Yeah, it kind of depends. And like if I'm working in like a flow, like a spreadsheet or something like that, like it's just kind of second nature at this point. But if I have to like write something or emails, like yeah, it's just no words. So
I used to listen to music all day, every day. Now I'm mostly on calls, but when I'm not, I'll usually listen to like Marcus Schultz, his like open and close sets, because there's barely any words in there. It's all
yeah,
trance and just completely gets you
yeah,
in
a
the
lot of
zone.
trance, a lot of like Armin van Buuren, a lot of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's what we're good. Alex is flying out to see Armin at Red Rocks.
Yeah,
Really?
November 14th.
Yeah.
Oh damn, my
Wanna
my
come out?
business partners live. Yeah, my business partners are live in Denver,
Get a
so
ticket.
I was just
Let's
there.
go.
Wow.
Let's talk about this after because I feel like
Yeah. Okay. Me pulling up another screen. I'm like, okay.
let's definitely talk about that. That'd be awesome.
It came up on a feed. As soon as I saw it, I texted Josh. I'm like, I'm buying tickets. I'm sleeping over. Just like, let's
That's
go.
crazy.
I
Yeah.
also can't listen to words, and like I can't have any lyrics in my. So Dead Mouse, I listen to Dead Mouse. Like
Oh
whatever
yeah.
songs don't have any lyrics in them, that's kind of what I just work to all day.
Yeah. OG Dead Mouse. Yeah.
Exactly.
Good stuff.
Go into that too if you want to come to Red Rocks on that. So I thought I was going to start is with a few firsts that you shared with us last time we spoke. The first one being the first time you bought and ran a website. I think you knew we were going to go in this direction.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what that website was?
Yeah. So I think the one you're referring to was the adult toy website, which was pretty fun and interesting. It was that was actually the second, but it always sounds fun. It was the first website that we actually like made money on that I was like, oh dang, like affiliate marketing SEO is where I'm gonna be. And this was in college, so I mean anything over $50 a month was like, meaningful. But yeah, we bought this domain and it was looking back on it, was so sketchy. Like you could totally tell it was like a PBN link that they were just kind of like selling on Flippa. And yeah, we bought it and it was just had this like obscure name that I'm not even gonna like announce on live, but we ended up having to redirect it over just because it was like so obscure and crazy. And it got to the point like when we were in class talking about it, we actually used an acronym for it, and it would like and add on the word associates. So people thought that we were like really like, you know,
That's
high-end
great.
business. It was like LH and Associates or whatever what it was. And so people didn't know like actually what it was. But yeah, and word got out and it was really funny. But yeah, it was crazy. It was a good site. Every category of product you can imagine is where we did keyword research on, and we brought like product reviews. Yeah, I think at its peak, it was making like $4,000 a month in college, and you could value those sites in like 30 to 40x their monthly. So it was like 120K value site. So I was like,
That's
I'm gonna
incredible.
drop
That's awesome
out.
in
Like,
college. Yeah.
so, and then it crashed and burned because it was a sketchy site that we didn't really know. But like all good things, you have to touch the stove at least once to know that it's hot. So
What made it crash and burn?
I think just like it had some really shady links kind of running to it because like it grew so much faster than any normal site should have. I mean, we created like probably 10 articles a month, and within like 45 days, it went from $0 in revenue to like $1,500 in revenue, which is just like unheard of. And then from there on out, it's kind of like doubled and doubled and doubled until it started getting to like that 4K range. And it was just like, this is not sustainable. And my partner came into class one day and was just like, I have some bad news. I was like, what
I
happened?
feel
He's like,
like
yeah.
every proper SEO professional needs that like black
Oh yeah.
hat story, like to really know
Yep.
where the borders are.
Yeah. And I'm just happy that it was my second site ever in college. It wasn't like
Hmm.
a client site. And now I know, like, yeah, it's just, but it was fun. It was a good ride. And I think it also kind of put some wind in the sails in terms of like the success that you could achieve or what could be of it. I mean, after the drop, we got it back. I think it's like we sold it for somewhere in like the 20 grand, 20, 30 grand range, like 2 years later after we were able to kind of like have it all even out. So it wasn't a complete loss, but it was a fun ride. It was kind of like I became like that guy to all my friends and like, hey, how's the industry? I'm like, shut up. Like that's not what I do. And it's funny because like at that time too, I owned like probably like 10 other sites. And I was like, I have like other business, like I have other things in the portfolio too. It's like not
Hmm.
like I'm just this. So
That's
it's fun.
hilarious.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to ask. I didn't know that you had that many sites, I guess, last time we spoke, but what made you just want to get into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so we had 40 at our max. And entrepreneurship, I don't know, it was just really random. So like when I was in college, I have kind of like a weird, like serendipitous story to that, but like I didn't have a plan. I was definitely like the poster child for like the Washington slack off college kid, I guess if you want to read between the lines there. And so I like skipped my orientation. I didn't have a plan. I just kind of like chose ad hoc course classes. And then because of that, I had to like do some random stuff. Long story short, I went to a study session with a kid for a philosophy class I wasn't supposed to be in. He suggested I take entrepreneurship, and I went to that, got into it. And in entrepreneurship is where I met my business partner and my friend, and he showed me SEO. He was kind of like doing the Amazon affiliate stuff. And then, yeah, flash forward 2 years, we had 40 websites with his other partner. We had a team of 30. We were pumping out like 300 to 400 articles a month. And we scaled that to 7 figures just strictly through affiliate marketing SEO. So
I feel like it's a fairly common
Amazing.
story for entrepreneurs that are either like bad at school, don't care about school, dropped out of school, like that whole thing, right? I was bad at school, started two companies. What do you think is like different? And I don't know how to answer that, so I'm curious what you say.
yeah, I don't know. I definitely wasn't like that. So like before that, I was like very studious. I had like a 3.8 average. I was studying finance. I still have my finance degree. I got that. Like I was going to do the MBA, finance, VC, sell your soul. Like know that 40 years of my life is just going to be sold off to some corporate institute, and I'll make good money, and that's that. Um, but thankfully, that wasn't the case. And I think that what happened for me, at least personally, was I just discovered a better opportunity and realized that I could just go all in on something else. and still kind of like go from a 3.8 to a 3.0, go from sitting in front of class to back of class and building websites, and kind of find that happy medium. And was started making money in college on the side and realizing like, back, I mean, it still is, but like, if you can get a website to $1,000 a month in cash flow, you could sell it for 30 to 40 grand. So it kind of became this like flipping real estate cycle. And I was like, well, this is way easier, way more fun. I don't have to essentially work. Like I never viewed it as work. And I was just like, yeah, screw college, screw my MBA. So I got the bare minimum, got my bachelor's, and just kind of like went full steam ahead.
And I guess just to continue on this real quick, talking about like the mentality of being an entrepreneur, the last time we spoke, something that you said really stuck with me, which is conflict leads to change. And I
Yeah.
just love that. I've literally been thinking about it since you said it. Can you kind of explain what that means?
Yeah, so that was a quote from like my partner Connor Gillivan, and we've been working together for a little over a year now. But something that he kind of said that really stuck out to me too. But I mean, entrepreneurship, like it's never up and to the right and easy all the time. I mean, it's probably one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do in my life, and I think entrepreneurs know that it's hard. Like business is very, very hard, and and most times when you have a situation with a client, say they come to you and they're like, hey guys, like, why did you do this? And you don't have an answer. And like everyone probably has that like one story in mind that's happened. That is a feeling you don't want to feel again. Like you want to minimize that feeling as many times as possible moving forward. So you're going to create a system, you're going to create a process, you're going to have your team like hone in on that to avoid it. And so it's like that conflict then lets change. And so if you can go into any situation thinking like that and knowing like, wow, in the moment, this sucks. Like I hate this feeling, but what can we do to make sure that we minimize this moving forward? And that is the change that will kind of like compound to become a successful endeavor.
I actually think that that's the best way to continuously iterate on a process. You're not necessarily finding like the perfect solution. You're just finding
Right.
the best way to mitigate that problem right now, and then you just keep reworking it
Yeah.
continuously.
Just risk reduction to the max. That's
Hmm.
entrepreneurship at its
Exactly.
finest.
Yeah.
And you've kind of everything you've said too is just like a story about finding motivators too and using them properly, whether it's conflict, whether it's whatever internal motivations we have. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And now I guess to start moving to the current business, how did you meet your co-founders?
Yeah, so that was also like my life is just really weird. Like it just is like a weird serendipitous pattern of luck. So after the first company, like we scaled that up, very successful company, and we had three Black Swan events hit us in 30 days. One of them was the 2021 Google algorithm update that solely targeted product reviews, which was 99% of our portfolio. The other one was Amazon cutting their commission rates, which cut about 60% of all affiliates overnight. And then the third one was COVID. And obviously that just shook the economy regardless. So that kind of like made us figure out like, we had thought we had this runway that was say 5 to 8 years. Obviously that's now a year or two. So like, how are we going to do this? And kind of just made me like rethink what I wanted to do and how I wanted to go about it. So kind of stepped away from the company, still really good friends with those guys. Talk to them like I golf with them like every day. But it just was time to kind of like figure out what was next. So I took a year off, did a lot of like random dabbling stuff, and then figured it was time to like probably get a real job and like figure out, get back away from entrepreneurship. And I worked at a startup for like 6 months, and I hated it. I hated every single second of it. I hated working for someone else's dream. I hated the rules. I hated the reporting. I just despised every second. So I quit on the spot with no backup plan. I was just like, I'll die before I do this again. And that was kind of around the same time that I discovered LinkedIn, or kind of like what this new version of LinkedIn is that people are starting to use and leverage. And just through networking and creating content and all sort of stuff, I connected with Connor, and he's like a big SEO guy in the space, kind of one of the top people there. So we kind of naturally hit it off, started networking, talking, texting. I met his partner, Nathan Hirsch. They're best friends since college. They've been entrepreneurs together for 15 years. They have great success as well. And just kind of had this natural flow and rhythm between us, and felt like it was just something there. So yeah, one night I was texting Connor, and I was just like, why don't you guys have an SEO agency? Like, this makes so much sense. Like, you both have a ton of clout in the SEO space and just business in general. They had just come off their exit in 2019, starting a couple new companies, all this sort of stuff. And they're like, oh no, we have it all mapped out. Like, we have a 20-page document that is what we would do, how we would do it. Everything is planned to the T. We just don't have an operator. And I was like, I can do it. But no problem. Yeah, exactly. I was like,
Nice.
you met the guy with two thumbs? Because like, yeah. And it was an exact replica of the first company. I mean, I managed 40 different websites before. We had a team of content people, writers. It was the exact same. The difference is that I wasn't going to own the companies this time. It was all client facing. So that was the only caveat tweak that we had to apply. And I was like, well, I know how to do it. I can copy the system. I can bring some team over. Like, we can get this going in like less than 30 days if you guys can find some beta clients. And so they just reach out their network and they're like, hey, we're starting this agency. If anybody wants to be involved in a beta round, like, no, that's not going to be perfect. We're going to give you good pricing. You have to work with us. You have to give us feedback. There's some caveats to this, kind of like, know that it's not going to be perfect, but like, we're going to do good work.
Spoken like true product people.
Yeah. And it's like, know that you're an early stage adopter and we're looking for feedback here. And they did. And some of those beta clients are still with us today. And it's been a year later and we have just past 25 ongoing retainer clients. And we're doing about 150 articles a month right now across the board. So it's been a lot of fun.
Real quick,
Nice.
Alex, before you ask your question, what did you implement differently in this business than your previous businesses? Like, essentially, what did you learn and then do differently? But yeah, what did you do differently in this business?
There's two things. So the first one is strategy is much different. So like back in the day when we would create sites, we had complete control over the strategy, how we want to go about it, what topics we'd write. So like the hub and spoke approach to content and SEO, which people are like, I mean, that's like the tried and true method. Before was so easy to do because you could be like, hey, we're only going to do 20 topics a month and it's all going to be on the same content. And you come to a client and you say, hey, we're going to do 20 topics and they're all going to be in the same hub. And they're like, yeah, we don't want to write those. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, you know, whatever you want to do. So you kind of have to adopt to their goals, their preferences, their ICP, their industry, while also keeping a lot of the hub and spoke mentalities in mind. So you might write 3 out of the 20 and then do 3 the next month. And you're kind of doing these little mini hub and spoke. So like getting the point across and kind of communication with the client on why it's important to do this and then also meet them in the middle is one of the things that was different to kind of adopt to. And then just a lot of the communication, like the communication cadence between how we're structuring our weekly emails, why we're sending weeklies instead of monthlies like other agencies, how are we doing our reporting, what matters, how do we optimize that and systemize it within the team, how are we doing a lot of the things before where we could be really agile and flip an entire site around in 20 days or less, whereas now we have to meet with the stakeholders, we have to meet with the CMO, we have to meet with the founder, we have to get approval, we have to go to the brand, blah, 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 blah. Like there's this entire checklist of things and gates and like hoops we have to jump through to do one small thing. And that's fine. It's just how companies are run. So just the difference between when SEO is so time constrained and you want to work quickly and be on the forefront of every single change, but you can't just do that without approval. So that was kind of like the weird shift, I guess.
Right. You don't have carte blanche to do it because it's not just for you. There's now
Yeah.
a client with their own opinions and it's kind of,
Yep.
you know, their
Even though you
domain.
know, like in your best interest, it's probably the best move and like it's fine. And like content quality, it's like obviously quality should be great, but you redlining where the comma should be placed in this article versus where the apostrophe is, like that's not going to make or break your article. Like let us do our thing and look back in 30 days, like and trust, just communication and trust.
Yeah, that's a big shift. What is what does the company look like now in terms of team and services, and do you expect that to change in the future?
Yeah, so one of the core things that we really focused on from day one is not having a lot of services. We wanted to get really good at having one clear offer, one clear process, and being known for that, which is content. So that's kind of our thing today. We do a DIY, like a done for you or a done with you service, whether it's full service, strategy, all the way to uploads and publishing. Or we'll do a mix, which is like just strategy and outline briefs, and then your team can write, upload, kind of carry it forward from there. So we're flexible, but I think like obviously we're gonna start incorporating like backlinks and like how do we get other things worked into that package. But again, like we're trying to avoid the carrot on the stick mentality. So so that's like the services and packages. The team right now is about 8 full-time people, about 15 writers that are contractors and being converted slowly into full-time team members. And then me and 2 partners. So still pretty lean.
Nice. Do you expect that to change in the future, or is this kind of you found this, it's a good niche, we're going to stick to this, to the content and strategy, or do you see it expanding from there?
I think it's definitely going to scale up. I don't think we're going to like do anything outside the norm compared to what we are now, except for like backlinks would be the only kind of thing that we try to incorporate, because that just kind of like makes everything else stronger. But
I love it.
Yeah,
I think too many times agencies start going, well, this is just in reach, let me just add this in, and that's in reach, let me pull this in, and then eventually you're not specialized in anything that you do.
Exactly. And like every time you add something, people look at it as like, oh, you're just adding the service, but really you're adding a business within a business, because you have to have a system for that. You have to have a team, you have to have a process, you have to have reporting. It's like
you're hitting on like one of the things I love talking about the most. I'm very operational minded. And I find that there's a lot of companies with a lot of services and not the operations to match. Like they may be very good in one set of operations, but then they offer all these other things that they just don't have the operations for it.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, I mean, that's something that I've always kind of clung to, systems wise. And then my partners are all also the same way. It's like, this is what we do. It's simple. If you're looking for something else, that's fine. Like we're trying, and we also have really strict acceptance policy with all the clients we work with. And so that was the other thing I guess that was different, was like me coming from, we own the businesses, we own everything else. We have security, we have all this sort of stuff, where client facing is more, it feels like it's always going to be your last meal. And so how do you adopt the mindset to know that clients are always going to come and go, and if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. It's fine. So making sure that you're staying patient and not saying yes and being a yes guy on every single thing, because that can distort the system. It can distort the quality, it can distort the communication. And you look back and you're like, this isn't what we started as. Like, what happened here? So
yeah, I'm very, I guess, strict on that. Clients start asking for additional stuff. Like, for example, for us, we don't do any content, and I'm very upfront with clients on that. I'm just like, we don't do content, but we have companies that we can recommend. I just like try to break that wall or build that wall right away, but then also provide the support to say like, we have companies that you can work with. And then, definitely all about staying in your lane.
It's all about expectations too, all around.
Yeah.
On that note, what do you do with customers who ask for something that you don't specialize in or don't have internally?
We have a pretty good referral network. So we'll just say like, hey, we don't do that. Sometimes like with links right now, we're starting to, white label someone else's agency and bring them in under ourselves so that we can kind of still manage the communication, manage the billing, make sure all the reporting's good. Like it's just easier from the client's point of view, where they just work with us and then we manage everything else. But I think it's pretty few and far between where people are like, hey, I also want to do email marketing and it's a must that this happens. It's like people come to us knowing we do content. I would say the only kind of indiscrepancy is when people want to do like local SEO, and that's just like an entirely different can of worms. And so we're just like, we have a referral for that. And that's fine.
And you're going to be a perfect partner in our referral network.
Yeah,
it's because it's so clean on what you do, right? Even in the SEO, we write articles. It's like, whoa, local SEO is completely different.
Yeah,
we haven't heard many SEO agencies, any actually, I think, break it down that way. So it's very refreshing to hear that you have a very clean focus on what you're doing. And I think that's going to allow you guys to scale really quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks. Yeah, that's the only. Oh, sorry. The last thing I was gonna say too is that like we don't just do articles. Like we'll do like service pages or sales pages when it makes sense for the strategy. But yeah, core focus is like blogs, articles. We're not gonna do like white papers. We don't do anything else. It's just like that's what we do.
and I have another referral question in a second, but I guess I just want to kind of understand, where do you get most of your net new business now? Is it like referrals, word of mouth, ads? Like what does that look like?
A lot of it is social media and word of mouth, and I mean Connor has 85,000 on LinkedIn, and a growing Twitter. Nate has 35,000 on LinkedIn and like another 10 or 20,000 on Facebook, and they're both growing their Twitters. I mean, they're just networking machines. They have so many connections from their first company, FreeUp. And when they sold that, I mean, Nate, let alone, has been, I think he just passed, not even kidding, 1,000 podcasts that he's been on, as a guest. And so like, yeah, I mean, you just know a lot of people at that rate. So, but yeah, I mean, like they've always had a reputation for doing everything such high quality, and that's kind of what we've tried to keep that mindset with Trio. And now we're starting to experiment with Twitter ads and starting to experiment with some cold email outreach and just starting to really ramp up marketing, because like we wanted that 1 year to pass where like year one was only systems and process. And now that we have that really dialed in, it's like, okay, how do we hammer down on everything else?
Right.
Nice.
And you may have already answered this, but I want to explicitly ask it, because I think we tried to pull this question out and kind of like make sure that everyone hears it. So, how can you work with other agencies, or what services can you partner with other agencies? So, in other words, what do agencies tend to reach out to you for?
I mean, we only do content, so like that's usually what they reach out to us if they need. Like we'll kind of do that where we can create outlines for them, we can write for them. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's just that's all we do. So it's like that's all we can really offer. But I mean, there's always some agency trying to help us out. It's like, how can I get you more booked calls? But I don't know. That's just maybe I misunderstood the question, but that's like all we
No,
do.
no, no. I
that's
think you
right.
already answered it, to be
Yeah,
honest.
all we
I just,
offer.
they reach out to you for
Okay.
content
yeah.
Yeah.
and
That's all
content
we do.
strategy.
Yeah, and strategy. We'll do strategy. We'll never say no to that. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
And is that limited to content strategy or SEO strategy as a whole?
Sort of the same. So we'll do an SEO content strategy, meaning like we'll do all the keyword research, all the competitor research, gap analysis. We work in 90-day sprints for each client. So once we do all the analysis, we'll curate a 90-day sprint based on X number of topics. So if it's like 5 per month, you're getting 15 topics chosen in which order they should be, what the slug URL should be, all that sort of stuff. And that like gives them, like I just did one for a strategy only client. They had like 200 plus topics, but then from those 200 plus, I created like a 21 article roadmap, 7 per month. And then they usually get that. And they're like, oh, wow, like now what do I do? And then they hire us for outlines or blogs or something like that, because they realize it's like a massive undertaking. So
Nice.
And a few questions I like to ask at the end. If you had to teach something to other marketers, what would it be?
I don't know if it's taught, but the one thing I constantly remind myself of is patience. Like it is the most underrated attribute of an entrepreneur, I would say. If you are just very, very patient and thinking years, that's kind of something that we always have. That's why we kind of also clicked, is because like the agency within Nate and Connor and I, it was always like year one is fine. Like we're just going to focus on what I said, like processes and team and all that sort of stuff. And I think everyone is so blinded by trying to make $1 million in 30 days. And it's like, why don't you make $1 million in 5 years? It's like, it's going to be way more sustainable, way more successful. And it's probably going to last, 10 plus 15 years down the road. So I think reminding yourself to zoom out and think about why you started. Like no one gets in the business to flip it and sell it in a year. And so it's like, if you're actually in it for the long haul, like treat it like it's the long haul and do everything else that's very process oriented and systems wise, so that your life is easier and you can actually scale. But if you're just constantly in the weeds, it's like why would you start a business for that reason? So
I have a few people I can share.
I want to squeeze more of the grape because some of the stuff that you're saying I love. Like you talk about 90-day sprints. You're specific in what you offer. I'd love to understand kind of what's the ideal cycle. Someone, let's say you start working with a client, whether introduced by another agency or you met them, can you go through what the whole process looks like? And also, if you're open to it, include, you don't have to say like the dollar amount, but like how you charge. I just feel
Yeah,
like
of
you
course.
guys,
It's
the
all
way you're
public.
talking
Yeah.
about it, you guys have nailed it on how you're structured and the offer. So I'd love to
Yeah.
hear more.
Of course. So yeah, we always start with a discovery audit. That's more for our due diligence than theirs, and obviously they get to keep that. That's just our findings. Discovery audit walks through what problems we're seeing from their website, whether it's CRO, UX. That's also a big division of it. We'll do everything from homepage, about page, FAQ page, blog, footers, headers, everything. It's like where and why is your website not working for you?
Mm-hmm.
What are the solutions that we offer relative to those problems? And then overview of like general SEO stuff, like what's your domain rating, what's your estimated organic traffic from Ahrefs, kind of all the data stuff. And then we do some preliminary keyword research, which will be anywhere from like 20-ish topics that we would initially use if we were to start the conversation and work together. And
That is
these are
that
just
still
kind
a part
of,
of the audit?
yep, this is all the audit. And so it's like just one big spreadsheet. And then we walk through all that and list like the KD, the volume, all the general stuff, and then kind of like what we would offer in terms of like our best guess of a package for you that would meet where your goals lie. And then like probably like we just denied someone today. We don't accept everyone. It's very situational based on their industry, the size of their site, their authority, where they want to go, their budget. Like there's so many variables that it has to make
Mm-hmm.
sense for
To
us.
start the audit.
No, just even like we'll do the audit no matter what.
Okay. Is the
Because
audit
that's
something,
only
is it billed or is that something you do?
it's
Uh,
ad hoc or it's manual. And that's just our way. It's the only way we can really like make an educated decision around
mhm.
whether it makes
Are you
sense to work with
charging
the
for the
client.
audit?
Nope. The person just has
Wow.
to
Okay.
have a actual definite interest in working with us. Like we're not just going to do
Hmm.
the audit because it's like audit my site. It's like there has to be some interest in there.
Yeah,
And we
it's
usually always
great.
have a preliminary call to make sure like that, hey, like is your
You're
budget
qualifying
good?
them.
Are you
Yeah.
qualified for this? Yeah, exactly.
Bam,
Um,
and stuff.
and then the audit just kind of confirms or denies whether it's worth going to the next meeting. And the next meeting is with Nathan, who's the VP of sales, and myself. So I can kind of explain the SEO side of things and he can kind of be the sales side of things.
Hmm.
Um, and just kind of getting more information about like, are you actually looking at this as a ongoing path to your business, or is this going to be some experimental thing you want to throw money at and see quick results? Because if that's the case, it's not going to work out. We usually only work with people who have at least a 6 month plus mindset on this. If they're like, hey, let's start with a 90-day sprint, and it's like, start with that, or do you want to actually work with us long term? So there's a lot of like expectations and a lot of like clarity in those first couple of meetings. And then assuming they sign and work with us, all this sort of stuff, we'll just take the topics from that audit and throw them into the first sprint and then do more keyword research on top of that. So that saves a lot of time. And then we do everything from, competitor analysis, gap, kind of all the general stuff. And then what we do is we create the roadmap for the client and we bring the roadmap to the client where it's like, hey, here's our best guesses of what we think. Obviously, you know your business better than we know your business. Where would you adjust things? Maybe you're moving it up, maybe you're denying things, rejecting topics, whatever that looks like. And then before they lock in the roadmap, we also send all the extra topics that we found to them and they prioritize those high, medium, and low. And then based on the priority levels that they assign from the remaining topics, our initial findings and gut feeling based on where they should go, just our SEO stuff, we merge the two, create the roadmap, and then all of the future roadmaps are pretty much pre-built out for the next 90-day sprint from there on out because the client already signed all their highest priority topics, and then we just take them and organize them. So it's pretty automated from there on out. We load them into Airtable. The team makes outlines. We get a writer on it. We work with the brand brief, get the sample approved for the first article. Work really slow in the first 30 days so that we can like really hone in the articles, hone in the feedback, gain that trust from the client, and then really ramp it up from there and kind of just kind of go heads down. So
Is the 90-day sprint priced differently than the ongoing work afterwards?
no, so we only so everything is going to be on a monthly retainer. So like for full service, the minimum package of 7 articles per month is 3,000, and pretty much the way that we work is it's like it's always going to be that price regardless. And then we meet in 90-day sprints so that we can review strategy together. We review quarterly analytics, general check-ins if they have any changes in their business, all that sort of stuff. And then ongoing communication cadence is every Wednesday we send out an email, and that's going to include 2 to 3 bullet points on content. So like what was written, what was edited, what was published, where we are there. Analytics, there will be 2 or 3 bullet points on ranking wins, site-wide, GSE, and top 10 pages, and then a link to their dashboard, which is the dashboard is a custom integration between Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and Ahrefs, so they can just like really hone in them. And then a DIY SEO tip of the week, which is something they can do outside of our scope, which it could either be backlinks, technical SEO, off-page, etc. To where if they wanted to take it further, they could do this, and this is something that helps move the needle beyond content. So,
Wow, well, I'm certainly not building this to scale from what I'm hearing.
it was not an overnight thing. It took a lot of time. It was fun though.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned you spent like the year prior getting your systems and operations together, and it's great. I love it.
Thanks.
The things that you have the client do or recommendations, do you just kind of leave it to them to just say, okay, here's, for example, you said like technical SEO, you just leave it on them to figure out how and who they're going to use for implementing that?
Unfortunately, yes, right now, just because it's not part of our service. Like we're just so hyper focused on content. But we have a technical SEO referral. So if we work with a client that's just like, we look at the site in Ahrefs and it's just like, what in the hell is going on here? Like we'll loop them in obviously to tackle that. But most of the clients we work with are pretty smaller sites, like less than 100 pages on their site total. So like we don't have a lot of bloat to really worry about. CRO and UX stuff, every client gets a fully in-depth CRO audit. We're not experts by any means, but we've owned a lot of businesses and owned a lot of websites. So we just use that knowledge of like, hey, your featured image is your entire above the fold size. Like probably should edit that. So we kind of just do a full checklist for them, give that to them. And if they don't have a designer, we can refer someone. But same thing, it's like, it depends. Like if they're using Elementor, which is like our primary front end builder, like we can assist, but it's more or less like, hey, these are things that you really need to work on. And even like in some cases, we can bring you all the traffic in the world. But if your marketing team and your design team and your whatever is not pulling the levers correctly to leverage that traffic, whether it's newsletters, lead magnets, X intent pop-ups, the list goes on, like that's our job here is done. Like we've brought you a ton of traffic. Like how are you leveraging
our goal is traffic? Yeah.
So that's kind of the
you
other.
Gotta have it convert and then call the damn lead.
Yeah, it's like here's the like. I was just talking to a client this morning. It's like the data shows that people are on your site clicking things, but like something here has to change in terms of whether it's your CRO or your UX. Like how can we work with you to level that up? Because people are obviously on the site, but like they're not engaging in the action. So like, let's put our brains together and kind of think on this.
Love it. Yeah.
I see you still cooking over there, Alex. Steven.
Man, I have so much more to go into.
No, I've got extra time.
We're gonna run out of time.
No, I'm
just
you guys are.
Everything you're talking, like the operational systems that you've set up on the content and strategy and how you approach it. That's where I focus, except not on content at all, but specifically on CRO and UX and making sure that traffic actually converts. That's pretty much all we do. Like when people say informational based websites, we think that's a terrible way. Your website should be a validation site. Someone's coming there, you should validate what they need and get them to convert.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I kept the time slot open after this if we wanted to have a carry on. I'm totally up for you guys. So
Nice.
Cool. Yeah. I think, on that note, I guess as we come up to the end of the episode, I just want to give you an opportunity to mention how people can find you and anything else you'd like to end with.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, very active there. You can Steven Schneider or Trio SEO. You can find me one way or the other. You can also just Google my name plus Trio SEO. I always like to joke that if you can't find us on Google, we're doing something wrong. So
That's a problem, right? As an SEO. Yeah.
That's a good point.
So yeah, poke around and kind of see, you can reach out to us on the website or yeah, whatever works. I'm sure you can find me one way or the other.
Awesome. And thank you so much for coming on the show. And for those of you who have learned something new from this episode, please consider giving us a like or a follow so we can continue getting the highest quality of guests. And as always, thank you for listening, Steven. This has been like a great episode. I think we just checked off so many things that we get through. So thank you. Thanks for listening to the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast. I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. And before we go, I just want to thank our sponsors, DevNoodle. DevNoodle provides marketing agencies with the ability to offer their clients unlimited website design, build, and management services with fixed monthly plans. If website design, development, and maintenance is holding your agency back from growing, please reach out to us at devnoodle.com, where we make websites easy for you and easy for your clients. devnoodle.com.